Kotoura-san is an anime adaptation of a four-koma manga. It is a romantic comedy series about a girl who has the ability to read minds, who upon meeting the main guy, decides to join a club with him and several other girls, along with one other guy. Now at first glance, this would just sound like your typical romance harem series, lighthearted and full of fan service and bad attempts at comedy. If you thought this, well, you'd be correct. In all honesty, that is what the series mostly is. It's just your typical romance series. Though there isn't a harem in it, it still follows a lot of what you'd expect out of a romance comedy series. It's funny, actually. When I first saw the series on Mao, I thought it looked awful. It sounded like another boring adaptation of a boring manga I couldn't care less about. However, liking the main girl's design, I gave it and gave the first episode a watch. And boy, let me tell you, the first episode of Kotoura-san is a fucking experience. Having expected boring and uninteresting, lighthearted shenanigans, I was instead met with a dark, somber, and pretty bleak first episode. The first episode of Kotoura-san is something that I still remember completely to this day. It's been several years since I last watched the series, but the first episode still sticks in my mind as fresh as it did the first time I watched it. It is honestly a damn fine piece of anime. It takes the idea of having the ability to read minds and makes it out to be a curse rather than a gift. You watch this girl grow up. You experience her life as her strange power keeps causing more and more problems for those around her, all the while listening to this massive musical score that accompanies over half the first episode. As her life plays out in front of you, the song matches the mood perfectly. Happy moments sound wonderfully happy, while the sadder moments take a noticeable dip in tone. Kotoura's life isn't a good one, and the first episode perfectly shows you this. Instead of dumping her backstory on you halfway through the series, in an attempt to force drama, it just straight up shows you everything through her own eyes. You watch her experience these horrible things one by one. All the while, the background track continues to build, matching every scene it shows with near perfection. I'll avoid spoilers, but some pretty horrendous stuff happens to her, and with every bad thing that happens, you can see the impact it has on her. She is just a young girl trying to deal with the strange powers she has. She can't control it, nor can she help that she has this ability. You watch her life fall down around her in a pretty depressing way. And you know with every bad thing that happens to her that she's growing even closer to breaking. Which she does. She finally reaches a point where she is robbed of even the simplest interaction and she loses it. The way the entire scene is played out is wonderful. Tone-wise, it's perfect. You feel the sense of pain, the rain helping to cast a dreary and darkened look on everything. The animation is damn near perfect. I won't pretend the animation Kotoura-san is amazing, because it's not. It's got a lot of issues. However, the one scene is done perfectly. It captures the pure grief and just sense of brokenness she is feeling completely. The musical score that has been accompanying you since the beginning of the episode finally reaches its climax, helping to amplify the despair you are experiencing on screen. It all comes together to create a damn impressive piece of animation. To this day, I still argue that the first half of episode 1 of Kotoura-san is one of my favorite bits of anime ever. It's something that I still get feels from even now. Afterwards, you see a broken and damaged Kotoura, a girl with dead eyes who just marches along the street with zero emotions to show. All the while, the anime keeps the dark, dreary atmosphere going, showing barely any colors other than the various shades of grays and blacks. Then she meets the main guy. She reads his mind by accident and discovers him thinking about absolutely pointless stuff. The one dark and somber atmosphere is at once violently shattered away, replaced with an overly bright and colorful scene that completely clashes against what had just been shown. It is at this moment that the anime takes a nosedive into generic, unimpressive crap. Look, Kotoura-san isn't a bad anime by any means. Hell, sometimes I want to even call it a great anime, if not just for how damn good the first episode is. It is really fucking good. But the truth is that whatever the anime had going for it completely loses it after the first episode. It's not an instant kind of death, though. The first couple of episodes after the first one does keep a semblance of the edge it had in the first episode going, showcasing some pretty heavy stuff at a few points and still managing to get quite dark at times. At first, I really fucking liked that about it. The combination of cute as hell, lighthearted silliness, and surprisingly dark and heavy material really worked for me. It was like a showcase of what life is like, how one moment may be bright and colorful, and the next the exact opposite. But damn do I wish it kept that formula. Unfortunately, around episode 5, it just drops most of the darker elements it had going for it, instead falling into a very generic and uninspired series of boring fan service scenes and bad attempts at being funny. Earlier on, it actually suggests that the girl who is the head of the club had a really fucked up past, showing a quick glimpse of it in a flashback. It is pretty heavy shit, honestly. However, they never do anything with it. See, that's the problem with this series in a nutshell. They introduce really interesting and heavy ideas, but then just fucking drop them in exchange for uninteresting and generic anime fodder. Look, I like my comedy romance anime as much as the next guy. I can sit back and enjoy a series like Haganai. But the problem is that the series didn't fucking present itself like that kind of series. It goes out of its way to show a very dark and disturbed first episode, and even continues to hint at more interesting and heavy shit afterwards. But instead of doing fuck all with that, it just forgets it. Hell, later in the series, a subplot involving an, and I quote, serial beater is introduced, and I'm just left wondering what the hell happened. It's as if the people writing it forgot how to write dark material. And look, I'm not saying that I wanted to be a serial rapist or anything, but what they do with this subplot is fucking nothing. They just do nothing with it. My point is that the series goes fucking nowhere. Main girl just sort of stops being damaged at some point, which I guess would be fine if it was better done, but it just kind of happens. The sudden massive shift in tone and overall feel just causes any of what made the first bit so interesting to dissipate into nothing. From what I've heard and read into, they even changed a lot of the darker stuff that happens later in the series out with more lighthearted stuff that really just doesn't fit. Did the fucking director and writers get swapped out after the first few episodes and replaced with new ones? What is with the sudden massive shift in tone? I'm not saying that playing with tone shifts or anything is even a bad thing, but there are better ways of handling this. If you wanted to show Kotoura going from being extremely broken and alone to slowly finding happiness and joy in her life again, then do it. That could work out very well. But if that's the kind of story you want to tell, then for the love of God, tell it better than that. Bad humor and forced fan service 24/7 doesn't show me a character starting to get over the hurt and damage caused from years of isolation and loneliness. At least I can say one thing positive about the later parts of the series. The main love interest is really likable. He's not really a super unique character by any means, but he's a pretty damn good character in his own right. He really gets a lot of moments to shine in the series, and if it wasn't for him and the main girl being so cute together, I'd have been even more pissed off by the end. Look, Kotoura-san isn't a bad series. It's just, well, a generic one. Outside of the first few episodes, there's barely anything worth discussing about it, and that pains me to say, because the first episode is so damn strong it honestly deserved way better than what it got. I've heard a lot of people describe Kotoura-san as a damn good one-episode OVA, and to be honest, I kind of agree with that. With how damn good the first episode is in comparison to the rest of the series, I almost don't even want to recommend watching past the first episode, and that pisses me off to say. The series is just one of my go-to examples of wasted potential. A series with an amazing start that just launched out of the starting line and straight off a cliff.